Okay, good afternoon, everybody, please. From my name, welcome to International Scientific Conference, Contemporary Challenges of Economic Growth and Sustainability of Businesses, conference organized by Institute of Economics Skopje on the occasion of celebrating 70 years from establishment. Thank you for joining the session on key business issue, facing challenges, sizing opportunities. My name is Katerina Hadjinomova-Mikhailovska. I am professor at Institute of Economics Skopje at St. Cyril and Methodius University in Skopje, and I will moderate panel 4 at this session. This panel provides 5 presentations dedicated to researches in human resource management and practices. I remind all presenters that each presenter have 10 minutes to present, and all discussion and question will be moved at the end of the panel after the end of all presentation. So with no further extension, I will ask our first presenter to share their presentation. First present is the impact of economic downturn on human resource policies in small businesses, the case of North Macedonia, by Irina Piperkova, Vasil Popovsky, and Elena Davitkovska. Please, Irina, share your presentation, and the virtual floor is yours. Please.
Thank you, Katerina. I hope you all see the shared presentation. Yes, thank you. It gives me great pleasure to present our research at this conference. Our paper analyzes the response of small businesses to the negative effects of the economic crisis in terms of human resource policies in businesses, of course. The ongoing economic crisis is probably one of the most profound crises in modern times. The rising inflation and thus the increased costs, the disrupted supply chains, and the increased uncertainty about the future put great pressure on firms to control their costs of doing business. However, these cost-cutting measures will inevitably affect firms' HR policies. Previous research reveals that during economic downturn, businesses normally respond by freezing recruitment, by reducing employee development budgets, pay cuts, and even layoffs. These measures, however, undermine employees' morale, motivation, and engagement. Therefore, businesses should be careful not to undertake cost-cutting measures at the expense of severe loss of motivation and commitment among employees or reduction of their key talent pool. So indeed, I would say that the major challenge of human resource management during economic crisis is to balance between short-term goals of businesses as controlling costs and long-term goals of businesses as, for example, achieving desired market position. The main objective of this research is to assess the immediate effects of the economic downturn on management activities in small businesses in the Republic of North Macedonia, as well as their response in terms of human resource policies, and in particular recruitment, compensation, and employee development policies. For the purposes of the study, an online questionnaire was distributed to owners and managers of small businesses in different sectors in North Macedonia. The sample covered 54 small businesses, and 22% of these businesses exist in the market less than 5 years. The remaining are either 5 to 10 years or more than 10 years in the market. As for the number of employees, 57% of the sample are micro firms, while 42% of the sample employ 10 to 50 employees. An equal share of the sample are in trade and in services, while 11.2% of the sample are in production. Most of the firms state that the crisis has partial negative impact on their business, while for 1/3 of the firms, this negative impact is quite severe. As when it comes to the aspects that are mostly affected by the crisis, 74% of the companies stated that increased costs of operations are their primary concern, immediately followed by difficulties with new contracts, disruptions in supply chains, decline in sales, and for about 1/4 of companies, reduced liquidity is also an issue. As for the negative effects on managerial activities, for 3/4 of firms, the inability of long-term planning is their biggest problem, as well as postponing planned investment activities and even planned development activities. In terms of the negative consequences on HR policies, we can see that majority of the firms, or about 63% of the small firms, respond by either freezing or postponing new recruitments, while for 20% of these, it's either freezing or reducing pay levels or bonus levels. What is interesting here is to note that about 1/3 of the companies have not stated that this economic crisis posed negative effects on their HR policies, so none of the above are applicable to them. In fact, the very same percent of companies, 29.6%, stated that they have either implemented new recruitment or they plan to implement new recruitment, while for 66.7% of the sampled surveyed firms, freezing recruitment is one of HR policies implemented as a response to the ongoing economic crisis. We can see that small businesses strive to preserve their talent pools, as 83% of them are reluctant to make employees redundant. And finally, about 1/3 of companies respond to the economic crisis either by job transfers or job rotations. As for the compensation practices, we have rather interesting data here, as we can see that almost 54% of the sampled firms have either increased or plan to increase employee salary levels, while about less than 40% have freezed salary levels of their employees. The majority of companies do not plan reduction of employee salary levels. In fact, only 2% of this 9%, only 2% have already reduced employee salary levels, while 7% plan to implement it should this crisis continue. For the majority of firms, an option to increase or reduce employee bonus levels is not considered. Even in fact, we can see that the share of firms that consider to increase bonus levels of employees is a bit bigger than the share of firms that plan to reduce the bonus levels of their employees. And finally, when it comes to the development practices, we can see that firms do not plan to make big changes in these policies, in these practices. In the majority of firms do not plan either to increase or decrease planned training courses of their employees or training investments. Again, the same trend is followed here. We can see that the share of companies that plan to increase the training courses and the training investments of their employees is a bit higher in comparison to the share of firms that plan to decrease either the training courses or the training in budgets of their employees. As a conclusion, we can say that so far firms have responded to this economic crisis mainly by freezing new recruitments. It is in fact the first step that small businesses undertake during economic crisis. And as a response to the rising costs of living, most of the firms, the significant percent of firms, have increased pay levels. Businesses generally do not plan to have major reductions of employee training or employee development budgets. In fact, the 2008 financial crisis has not affected training investments considerably, as the previous recession proved that these cuts are least effective and they have negative impact on employee commitment and subsequently employee productivity. So it would be interesting also to have an additional research, probably somewhere by the end of fall, beginning of winter, just to see whether this situation has changed, as we see that the economist's anticipation is that the economic crisis will deepen. So it probably will have a follow-up to see whether this situation and these results will change in near future. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Irina, for the interesting presentation. Our next speaker is Almira Mehmeti, but she just informed us that she won't be able to present. So we continue with our next presenter, Sanya Pavlova. Please, Sanya Pavlova, share your presentation.
Good evening.
Yes, hello. Exploration of organizational culture and job certification as sustainability factors in higher education institutions.
I'm sorry, but I don't have an option to share my presentation. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, we will share your...
Yes, just give me 1 second.
1 second.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, we can see
Yes,
the
you see it,
presentation.
okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's okay, Sanya. Please.
Thank you. The title of my research is Exploration of Organizational Culture and Job Satisfaction as Sustainability Factors in the Higher Education Institutions. I chose the higher education institutions because it is a matter of my PhD thesis, and I think that this sector, the higher education sector, contains organizational culture and job satisfaction, and the motivation is very important during these business processes that happen in the higher education institutions very much now in the era of the COVID-19 pandemic. Some factors that are very important according to is that in the higher education institution and during the processes that happen in the higher education institutions, universities, for example, or some institutes, it is important to explore the impact that organizational culture and job satisfaction have on the employees, on the students, and all the aspects that happen in our society, as I told before, in the era of COVID-19. But we can see them as sustainable factors also because we put the focus on the higher education depending on these factors, organizational culture and job satisfaction. Organizational culture, according to my research, is an integral part of any organization that must be nurtured always. Why it must be nurtured? Because it is a very integral part and from the organizational culture depends all the processes that happen during the higher education institutions. The job satisfaction we see from the way that employees work. The job satisfaction is a key factor in the process of achieving a high degree of productivity in the performance of work. From the job satisfaction, depends the way of being able to work in a higher education institution, and the part of the part that give all the employees independent or a positive way of working. So we have also some different indicators which are the reason for the positive but also the negative implications, as I said before, that occur in the higher education system at all. The emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic was particularly influential. The impact of the COVID-19 was very big, and it is still being big. I can also say that the education system was faced problems which affected the job satisfaction and the way of perceiving the organizational culture that happens in every higher education institution. Next, I can say that the main research question in my research is that the connection between the organizational culture of higher education institutions and the cognitive, non-cognitive, and behavioral reaction of the employees institution is very, very important. I put the focus in the employees in the higher education institutions because they are an essential resource and an essential part within the higher education in the process of formulation and realization of the goals of the higher education institutions. I made a comparison, and I can say that comparatively, the impact that this relationship has on scientific research work, the success of students, organizations, and society is being considered during all the research that I have made. The main purpose of this research is to explore the organizational culture and job satisfaction as two important phenomena, also that to obtain an effective result. Human resources are based on the recruitment of people, employment, teaching, the eventual maintenance of basic data for all employees. But the range of use of all these activities is much wider and much more important. Some important factor which I want to mention is the need for employee motivation is being a key segment of the organization, because without motivation, all the processes and all work would be impossible, or it would bring negative implications. Having and with successful management, employee satisfaction and success of the organization will be achieved, and it will be for sure got. It is all that I could present in the interest of time, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sanya Pavlova, for your presentation. Interesting issue. Our next speaker is Tikhona Bozinovska. She will present the paper, Models of Board's Involvement in Strategic Decision, Importance and Classification. Please, Tikhona, share your presentation. Okay, we can see yes, it's okay. Please, the virtual folder is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tikhona Bozinovska, and I will present the paper titled Models of Board's Involvement in Strategic Decision-Making, Importance and Classification. Board's members are responsible for shaping the directions for future organizational development, and therefore their involvement and impact on the strategic decision-making processes is crucial. Numerous authors have emphasized the importance of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, and most of them are talking about the benefits related to increasing board's effectiveness as well as organizational performances on the long run. The increasing pressures for higher level of board's participation in strategic decision-making has started at the beginning of the 70s as a result of several, let's say, scandals or crises in the corporate world in the United States. And this is the period when the evolution of research regarding board's involvement in strategic decision-making has also started. The paper I'm presenting is a conceptual one, and the aim of the paper is to create a comprehensive overview regarding the models of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, as well as to classify them according to their characteristics. As I previously mentioned, the evolution of research on board strategic involvement has started at the beginning of the 70s, and it has 4 periods. In the first period, the authors were focused on the practitioner's perspective, and they did not try to elaborate the theoretical background of the concept. While in the second period, the authors were trying to create constructs for measuring a board's involvement in strategic decision-making, and to explain the theoretical background of the concept. The third period is characterized by papers in which the multidimensionality of the concept has been emphasized, while the fourth period is a period in which several integrative frameworks were designed. The models that were analyzed in this paper were developed in the second, third, and fourth period of the evolution of research on board's strategic involvement. According to their characteristics, the analyzed models can be classified in the following 3 groups: basic models, behavioral models, and integrative models. The identified groups of models differ between them in the following aspects: definition and measurement of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, its antecedents, and its effects. The first group is the group of basic models, and these models were developed at the beginning of the 90s or at the beginning of the second period of the evolution of research on board's strategic involvement. And according to these models, the definition of board's involvement in strategic decision-making is focused on formulation and evaluation of strategic decisions. The antecedents of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, according to these authors, include the board's structural characteristics, size, composition, and independence, and several organizational characteristics. On the other hand, the effects of board's involvement in strategic decision-making are measured by variables related to organizational performances. It is important to note that both models presented here differ between them in the methodological approach. Namely, Zahra and Pierce use quantitative methods for analyzing the antecedents and effects of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, while Jutke and Zeidmal use qualitative methods. The behavioral models were developed at the end of the 90s and at the beginning of the 21st century. According to these authors, board's involvement in strategic decision-making is defined as directors' engagement in the cognitive tasks required for decision-making, environmental scanning, interpretation, and strategy formulation. In this model, the antecedents of board's involvement in strategic decision-making is a combination of board's demographic characteristics and organizational characteristics with board processes and board relations. Basically, the main characteristic of these models is that they are analyzing board's behavior as a small elite teams responsible for making strategic decisions. Finally, these authors are analyzing the effects of board's involvement in strategic decision-making on a 2 levels, on a board's level and on the organizational level. On the board level, the authors are focused on analyzing the effects of board effectiveness, and on the organizational level, the authors are analyzing the effects related to decision quality. The third group of models are called integrative models, and here we have analyzed two models. First, we will present the GAIAS model, which is based on a scientific approach, and then we will present the model developed by Drew and Kaya, which is based more on the practitioner's point of view. According to Gaia, board's involvement in strategic decision-making is defined as job involvement. This author is using the theoretical approaches for the research in the area of organizational behavior and human resource management, and is explaining that board's involvement in strategic decision-making is actually directors' involvement into the tasks related to strategy formulation and implementation. According to the GAIAS model, the antecedents of board's involvement in strategic decision-making are represent an integration of the structural and behavioral characteristics of the boards, as well as the organizational characteristics and the characteristics of the environment. Finally, the effects of board's involvement in strategic decision-making, according to Gaia, should be measured with variables related to organizational performances and strategic decision characteristics. On the other hand, we have the Drew and Kaya model. In this model, the authors are analyzing two levels of board's involvement in strategic decision-making. First of all, they are analyzing the involvement of executive directors into strategic decision-making, and afterwards, the involvement of board as a whole into strategic decision-making. The main contribution of this model is the elaboration of the need for implementing a tool or a system for managing board's involvement in strategic decision-making, which is called a strategic scorecard. Namely, the companies are supposed to develop measurements for following board's participation in strategic decision-making in four areas. The first one is the analysis of company's strategic position, strategic risks and opportunities, strategic options, and a strategic implementation. In conclusion, we can say that board's involvement in strategic decision-making is of vital importance for board effectiveness as well as organizational performance on the long run. And the presented models and their classification contribute by depicting the multidimensionality and complexity of the concept, and by giving a direction for developing an appropriate tool or system for managing board's involvement in strategic decision-making. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Tihona, for your excellent presentation. Now, at the schedule, we have Anna Petresca, and she will present a paper about managing virtual teams. So I ask Anna Petresca to share her presentation. Anna, I can see you are in the call, but we are not hearing you. Anna, can you hear us? Or you can type in the chat, please. Okay, so Anna was our last presenter, but she is not at the moment. I will ask if there are any questions, the panelists, please. Okay, I have question. Anna,
I'm
okay.
so sorry, Professor, but I don't know what to do with my computer. I was waiting for this all day and then it just closed. I
It's
don't know what
okay. You're
happened.
here. It's
I'm
okay.
so sorry, but it's
It's
not my
okay.
mistake.
Okay.
If you need, Anna, if you need help, we can share the presentation on your behalf. Would you like that?
No, it's okay. I think it's okay now. Do you see it? Oh my God, my
No.
computer is blocking. You can share the presentation because
Yes,
Okay,
we will
we
share the
will share
presentation, but please let us know when to
when
change
you're.
the slides,
Yes.
please.
okay, I will mention.
Do you see it?
Yes, I'm seeing now.
Please let me know when you want me to change the slides.
Okay, I will tell you. Good afternoon, Professor. Good afternoon, colleagues. First of all, I want to congratulations your University Jubilee. And you can go on the next slide now.
1 second, please. 1 second.
Okay. I don't see the presentation.
Just 1 second, please. 1 second.
Okay.
We have a problem when it is full screen. Let me share it without the full screen. And try this. Yes, okay. Here you go. Do you see it now?
No, still no. Now it's okay. It's okay. First of all, I want to start my presentation with one quote of Richard Branson. We like to give people the freedom to work where they want, safe in the knowledge that they have the drive and expertise to perform excellently whenever they are at their desk or in their kitchen. Yours truly has never worked out of an office and never will. Thank you. You can go on the next slide. Okay. A wealth of research is associated with virtual teams and collaboration technologies. However, no integrated model is available to guide decision makers at large organizations in the strategic implementation and management of virtuality. Changing organizational structures from traditional hierarchical towards lower and more flexible ones have made leaders to organize work in new ways. Many organizations are taking advantage of the opportunities to utilize new technologies to become more effective and efficient. You can go on the next slide. Thank you. Factors important for effective team are consistency, respect, inclusion, and honesty. Team members should all be treated in a comparable way without favorites or discrimination. Respect means different team members have different skills and these differences should be respected. Inclusion involve all team members and make sure that people's views are considered, and also the honesty. And I think it's the most important. You should always be honest about what is going well and what is going badly in a project or a work. You can go on the next slide. Virtual team. Virtual team is a group of people that relies primarily or exclusively on electronic forms communication to work together in accomplishing its goals. Groups of geographically, organizationally, and or time dispersed workers who brought together by information and telecommunication technologies to accomplish one or more projects or work. You can go on the next slide. According to a survey, because of the COVID-19 pandemic situation, more than 70 of employees are members of a virtual team. This is This is information of a survey that is being done in 2020. Information technologies and knowledge-based work make virtual teams possible, and globalizations make them necessary. You can go on the next. Similar terms for virtual, which are used by all managers and employees all over the world, are cyberspace, dispersed, long distance, distributed, and online. Next slide. Virtual teamwork formula is 10% technology plus 19% people equal 100% success. The inputs, virtual team inputs, are mission and goals, resources, calendar for action, and team directory. Virtual team outputs, also outcomes, are purpose, results achieved, their new product or service or process improvement, also process learnings like successful team, personal growth, and team player spirit. Due to the fact that the team doesn't work in an office and is not physically located together, employees don't have the opportunity to contact the manager at any time for a question, challenge, or get a specific direction. Providing availability for all the important challenges and problems that arise during the week increases the closeness with employees and colleagues and gives a sense of connection and expected support. This is a model that I made for my paper, and three factors are most important. They are people, process, and technology. The model is generative, interactive, and it's easy to use in companies. Also, it can be concluded that when people work with each other, it is necessary to have a high degree of trust because the data and information at their disposal are strictly confidential. Furthermore, good communication skills reduce the disadvantages that may arise at work, such as it is essential that the virtual team leader has the ability to manage many initiatives while enabling and providing a clear vision of team. The different physical location of employees and the weak team member can negatively affect the concept of a virtual team. Recruiting the right team members plays a key role in the success of a virtual team, and high level of emotional intelligence is especially important for employees in the company because building real relationship and establishing a positive work culture in the company are vital elements for employee development. You can go on the next slide. Thanks to modern and advanced technology, virtual teams can easily communicate around the world without restrictions, including many visitors, which guarantees maximum data security that ensures security in operation. You can go on the next slide. Virtual team works also have advantages and disadvantages. Advantages are that they're more productive, they have no timetable, work on a 24-hour basis like the global virtual teams. They are less costly, the travel expenses and labor costs, and also the outsourcing. But the disadvantages can be poor communication, example non-verbal, or like now what happened to me, the internet connection, building cohesion and trust, team leadership, and responsible members. Virtual teams play a key role in meeting these requirements. As organizations continue to compete for talented that rapidly become a scarce resource, the virtual team structure allows organizations to use available talent across borders. More and more organizations are accepting a virtual team approach to reduce their operating costs, encourage knowledge sharing among their employees to promote organizational learning, and extend their working hours 24 by the different time zones of the virtual teams. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ena Petresca, for your interesting presentation. Thank you all panelists for the good time management. You all up to time to 10 minutes. Thank you very much. So our session is coming to an end. Please, if you have any question or comments, raise your hand or post them in the chat. Okay. I don't see, but I have a question. Considering that I'm coming from a higher education institution, so I will ask Sanya Pavlova for discussion. What are your recommendations? Yes, hello, Sanya. What are
Hello again.
Hello again. What are your recommendation? Higher education institution in the process of work management faces numerous challenges. We are aware of that. Yes, very much. So what are your recommendations in terms of organizational culture and job satisfaction?
I work in a private higher education institution, and my recommendation is that we as employees, teaching staff, must learn every day, learn from the challenges, learn from the changes, and I think that the COVID-19 pandemic taught us many new things, and that we should never stop learning new things and new methodologies to implement them in our teaching processes.
Yes, of course. In the absence of manuals, procedures, and similar situations, we have to think fast. Yes.
Yes, very much.
The speed of change and the uncertainty followed but required the skills and application. Yes, it was very.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's okay. Continue.
I wanted to say that we must learn to think on a digital way, because all that happened in the last 2 years with the pandemic and with the changes, I think we became virtual teams, as the colleague said.
Yes, yes, of course. Okay. Yes, please, Ena, continue if you want to discuss about the virtual teams in higher education. You may speak.
In my paper, I was making a survey of virtual teams, not in higher education, only in companies. But of course, virtual teams can be everywhere, and students can be members of virtual teams. So virtual teams, the number of the virtual teams is so growing.
Yes, we are in the new age of living, I would say. Yes, this is new also.
Yes.
Okay. If anyone doesn't have any question, I will close up this panel and this session. Thank you very much for your participation and for your contribution at the conference. I hope we'll not see only virtual, but we will meet it physical. Thank you very much all for your contribution. We'll see you.
Thank you all, and
Thank
I
you.
would
Thank you
also
all.
like
Goodbye.
to say goodbye from all of us, and thank you for making your contribution to make this conference successful. And all the best in the future. I hope that we will have again a lot of opportunities to meet, to exchange our research insights and our new ideas that we have. Thank you all and have a nice day.
Have
Thank
a
you.
nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
Чекайте сега да си изключат сите, не си изключвайте вие.